Today's time expired. Mr. Gowdy, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for coming today. I had some specific questions I wanted to ask you, and if I have time at the end, I will. But there's been a theme on both sides of the aisle that I want to try to synthesize a little bit and see if we can get some clarity on it. At various points this afternoon, one or more of you have used words like authentic, accurate, misinformation, and disinformation. But at the same time, at least one of you has said you're not an arbiter of the truth. And I'm trying to reconcile how you can have disinformation or misinformation and not be an arbiter of the truth. So I guess, Mr. Stretch, we can start with you because you said you're not an arbiter of the truth. If that is true, then what is disinformation?
Disinformation we think of as inaccurate information spread with malicious intent by a foreign actor, and that would not be permitted on our platform. We don't need to decide whether the information itself is true or false to try to rid our platform of that. We don't want foreign actors masquerading as something they're not in order to speak on politically divisive issues in this country. That's easy.
So if I understand you right, if the actor is not authentic, then the content, whether it's accurate or not, is immaterial.
That's correct.
All right. And why would that analysis only be appropriate for foreign actors? Why would that not be appropriate for, I mean, there's been some discussion of voter suppression. There's also something called information suppression. I don't know how people benefit from demonstrably false information. So if that's the analysis for foreign actors, why would that also not be the appropriate analysis, period, across your platforms?
That is our policy across our platform. So everyone who shows up to Facebook is required to be their authentic self, and most fake account activity is local to the country.
Those are two different things. I can be my authentic self and say today is Thursday. And what are you going to do with that?
We believe that you be permitted to say that.
Under what Constitution? Do you think the Constitution protects intentionally false statements? Sir,
we are trying to provide a platform for authenticity.
I'm with you. If we could just, I assume you're a lawyer. I know your colleague to my right, your left, is a former AUSA, and I appreciate your service there. I assume all of you are lawyers, or you wouldn't have the jobs that you have. So is it constitutionally protected to utter an intentionally false statement?
So it depends on the context, but there is recent Supreme Court precedent on that. On Facebook,
on which side, that it is or is not?
That it is in most cases protected. However, on Facebook, our job is not to decide whether content is true or false. We do recognize that false news is a real challenge. The way in which we're addressing it is by trying to disrupt the financial incentives of those who are profiting from it, which is where most of it comes from. Most of the fake news problem is coming from low-quality websites that are trying to drive traffic on every side of every issue. And by disrupting the financial incentives, we're able to limit the distribution. We're also trying to make sure that users do know when a story has been disputed by a neutral third party and alerting users to that fact. I'll stop there.
Well, I'm smiling only because on the last break, a couple of my colleagues and I were wondering who those neutral fact checkers are. And I really do appreciate your desire to want to have a neutral fact checker. If you could let me know who those folks are, I'd be really grateful because people in my line of work might take exception with the neutrality of some of the fact checkers. So if I understand you correctly, the authenticity of the speaker is very important. The accuracy of the content, less so.
That's how we approach it. That's exactly right.
All right. For the life of me, I do not understand how a republic is served by demonstrably, provably, intentionally false information. And I get it that you don't want to be the arbiter of opinion. I don't want you to be either. But today's not Thursday. So if I say it is, I swear I don't understand how my fellow citizens benefit from me telling them something that is demonstrably false, and I am saying it with the intent to deceive. For the life of me, I don't get it, but I'm out of time.
Gentleman's time expired. Several members requested a second round. So with that, Mr. Schiff, 5 minutes. And we'll do just one more round for each. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Conaway and I have agreed to release the Facebook ads with the geographic targeting data. Do either of the other two companies, Twitter or Google, have any objection to our releasing the ads that have been identified as coming out of Russia as well?
No, and I'm sorry, no, we don't have any objection and think that's part of the education we'd like to see for our users. That's one of the reasons we're streaming today's hearing on Twitter. And so there are no objections from us.
Mr. Walker?
No objections. We're happy to work with the committee on that.
With Gentleman Yell, we've had an agreement on the stuff we've released today. The broader 3,000 is a different conversation.
Correct. I just want to make sure that companies, well, we've agreed to release all of the Facebook ads, although they have to be scrubbed first for personal information. I just want to make sure that the other two companies would also be copacetic with our releasing their ads.
Yep. With the same condition of there are some private citizens whose images may show up at the bottom of our tweets. We just ask, like you did with the boards today, to blur those faces out.
And I would ask also that the exhibits we've used today and referred to also be made part of our record. Couple other quick follow-ups. One, my colleague Mr. Castro asked if you would work on a joint report together. I'd like to underscore my support for that concept as well. You are uniquely positioned better than us to be able to identify the interaction between your platforms, how advertising on one platform led to likes that may have been used to target people on Twitter. We are not in a position really to do that. Would you be willing to combine forces and share with us a report on the sum total of the Russian social media interaction between your platforms during the campaign?
We're sharing threat information all the time, and we can definitely work together on this issue to get better together.
Would you commit, though, to providing us with a report that sets out the length and breadth of the Russian use of your platforms?
One of the things we're working on, Congressman, is a formalized threat and information sharing body that will address cybersecurity threats generally, and its goal is to actually publish, among other things, information. So we're certainly, once we get that body set up, we will put that on the agenda as something to discuss.
And we, as was mentioned, we're already sharing with the other companies, pardon me, information about Google Gmail accounts that might have been used to set up accounts on other services, and we're happy to join in a joint effort around that.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't hear it as a firm yes. Unless you want to somehow set us at loose within your databases, we're not in a position to do what I'm asking you to do, but you are. So I ask you to take that back and provide us an answer. I want to get back to the question I posed at the outset, which is broader than Russia, and that is, would you agree that the effect of your algorithms is such that it has the unintended consequence of deepening divisions within society because of the way it works, because of the type of things that go viral, because of the way you prioritize keeping eyes on the platform rather than showing people true information? Truth is not what rises to the top of the feed. It's not the criteria that's used. So what is the social responsibility here is one question. And the related question is, do you feel an obligation to those who were influenced by this Russian media that you can identify to give them notice that they were the subject of Russian-sponsored covert advertising and propaganda, because they may also be future targets of it as they've been identified by their clicking on pages or following pages, in the same way that credit agencies have an obligation to notify their customers when their identity has been compromised. Do you feel an obligation to notify your users that they have been the subject of Russian propaganda?
Given the latest of the hour, I'll ask each of the witnesses to provide us a written response to that answer. I mean, you took the 5 minutes and asked the question right at the end. So, in respect for other folks, I'll ask them to take that for the record. Recognize myself.